You have exactly until I count to 3 to explain why I shouldn't put a bullet through both your hearts right now. Emmett Blackwood's voice cut through the silence of the Silver Crown Saloon like a knife, his revolver trained steadily on Luna's chest before shifting to Nathan. The mining tycoon's eyes burned with a hatred that went beyond the present moment, a hatred born from secrets buried deep in the past. Luna clutched the blood-stained photograph in her trembling hand, her voice barely a whisper. "Because you're in this picture too, Mr. Blackwoods, and you know exactly what it means." The color drained from Blackwoods' face as he stared at the faded image. 4 adults standing before a mine entrance, their faces young and hopeful. One face had been violently scratched out. 1, Blackwoods began counting, his finger tightening on the trigger. But how had Silver Creek arrived at this deadly confrontation? The story began just hours earlier, on what had started as an ordinary day in the Arizona Territory of 1876. The midday sun beat down mercilessly on Silver Creek, a town that had exploded from nothing to prosperity in 5 short years after silver was discovered in the surrounding mountains. Dust devils danced down the main street, past the assayer's office, the general store, and finally, the Silver Crown Saloon, the heart of the town's social life and its darkest secrets. Inside, Thomas Fletcher wiped down the bar counter with practiced efficiency. At 53, the former cavalry sergeant had seen enough bloodshed in the war to last several lifetimes. The scar that ran from his left eye to his jawline served as a daily reminder of the violence men were capable of. He'd opened the Silver Crown hoping to leave that violence behind. Today, that hope would be shattered. The saloon doors swung open, momentarily flooding the dim interior with harsh sunlight. Luna Hawk stepped inside, clutching a small bundle wrapped in faded cloth. At 22, her mixed heritage was evident in her features. Her mother had been Apache, her father a mystery she had never solved. In a town sharply divided by wealth and race, Luna existed on the margins, taking whatever honest work she could find to support herself and her 16-year-old brother Miguel. "Mr. Fletcher," she called softly, approaching the bar. "I need to speak with you." Fletcher's weathered face softened slightly at the sight of her. "Luna, this still isn't a place for a respectable young woman." "Respectability won't feed my brother," she replied, her dark eyes meeting his directly. "The mine cut wages again. Miguel worked 14 hours yesterday and came home with barely enough to buy bread." Fletcher sighed, glancing around the half-empty saloon. The midday crowd was thin, a few miners drinking away their sorrows, a table of gamblers focused intently on their cards. "What are you proposing?" Luna unwrapped her bundle, revealing a battered wooden flute. "My mother's. She taught me her songs before she died. Apache songs, Spanish lullabies. I can sing, Mr. Fletcher. Let me perform here in the evenings, just for tips." "Luna," Fletcher began, his voice heavy with reluctance, "you know what Blackwoods would say if—" "Emmett Blackwoods doesn't own this saloon," Luna interrupted, a flash of defiance in her eyes. "Not yet, anyway." Fletcher's jaw tightened. The mining tycoon had indeed been pressuring him to sell the Silver Crown, the last business in town he didn't control. Fletcher's refusal had led to subtle threats. Suppliers mysteriously unwilling to deliver his liquor shipments, customers warned away, the bank suddenly reconsidering his loans. "One song," Fletcher finally said. "Right now. If folks like it, maybe we can work something out for quieter evenings when Blackwoods isn't around." Luna's face lit up with hope. "Thank you." As she moved toward the small clearing beside the piano, Fletcher noticed something fall from her shawl, a photograph. He picked it up, intending to return it when the image stopped him cold. 4 people stood before a mine entrance, their faces young and full of promise. Fletcher recognized 2 immediately, a younger Emmett Blackwoods and Luna's mother, Esperanza. But it was the other man in the photo that made his blood run cold. "Luna," he called, but she had already reached the piano player and was whispering instructions. Fletcher tucked the photograph into his pocket, suddenly uneasy. There were ghosts in that image, ghosts he thought long buried. Jake, the piano player, began a gentle introduction. As Luna raised the wooden flute to her lips, the saloon doors burst open again. This time, the silhouette that filled the doorway belonged to Emmett Blackwoods himself. At 48, Blackwoods cut an imposing figure in his tailored suit, gold watch chain gleaming across his vest. Behind him stood his 2 ever-present guards, hands resting casually on their holstered revolvers. The room instantly fell silent. "Fletcher," Blackwoods acknowledged with a curt nod, his cold eyes scanning the room before landing on Luna. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, followed by something darker. "What's this? Entertainment in the middle of the day?" Fletcher moved from behind the bar. "Just trying something new, Mr. Blackwoods. The young lady was about to favor us with a song." Blackwood stared at Luna with unsettling intensity. "By all means," he said, his voice deceptively pleasant as he took a seat at his usual table in the corner. "I'm always interested in local talent." The atmosphere in the saloon had changed, charged with an inexplicable tension. Luna hesitated, suddenly aware that she stood at the center of attention. But the thought of Miguel returning from another brutal day in the mines with empty pockets strengthened her resolve. She nodded to Jake, who began playing again. Luna closed her eyes and raised the flute to her lips. The haunting melody that emerged seemed to transform the dusty saloon, carrying listeners to mountain valleys and desert skies. When she lowered the flute and began to sing, her voice filled the room with a power and beauty that few suspected she possessed. It was a song of struggle and resilience, of a people who had faced devastation but refused to disappear. As she sang, even the card players set down their hands, captivated by the raw emotion in her performance. From his corner table, Blackwoods watched with an expression that shifted from curiosity to recognition to thinly veiled panic. His hand moved unconsciously to his breast pocket, as if checking that something was still there. As Luna finished the first verse, the old prospector Jenkins suddenly spoke from his table near the bar. "That's Esperanza's song," he said, his voice slurred but his eyes clear. "God rest her soul. Used to sing it at the camp before the massacre at Yellow Canyon." The words hung in the air like gun smoke. Luna faltered, her song momentarily forgotten. Yellow Canyon. Her mother had mentioned the place only once, on her deathbed, a warning never to speak the name aloud. "What did you say, old man?" Blackwoods demanded, rising from his chair. Before Jenkins could respond, the saloon doors opened once more. The man who entered moved with the quiet confidence of someone intimate with danger. Worn boots, trail-dusty clothes, a weathered hat pulled low over eyes that missed nothing. At his hip hung a Colt revolver, the grip smooth from years of use. Nathan Rivers had a face that told stories without speaking, half white, half Apache, all determination. At 31, he had spent 8 years as a wanted man, his name whispered around campfires throughout the territories, the Apache Outlaw. Some called him a murderer, others a hero who stood against corruption when the law would not. He had come to Silver Creek following whispers about a young woman with an Apache mother named Esperanza, possibly his long-lost sister, separated from him during the forced relocations years ago. After nearly a decade of searching, following every rumor and ghost trail, this lead felt different. The moment he heard Luna's song from outside, something in his blood recognized the melody. His mother's song, passed to his sister, and apparently to her daughter. As Nathan stepped inside, his eyes immediately assessed the room, noting exits, threats, and the charged atmosphere. His gaze moved from Luna to Blackwoods, and his expression hardened with instant recognition. "Rivers," Blackwoods said, the name escaping his lips like a curse. "Blackwoods," Nathan replied evenly. "Still building your fortune on stolen land and broken promises, I see." The mining tycoon's face flushed with rage. "You have some nerve showing your face in my town after what you did at Yellow Canyon." "After what I did?" Nathan's voice remained calm, but his eyes flashed dangerously. "Interesting version of history you're peddling these days." Luna looked between the two men, sensing a history deeper and more volatile than their words revealed. "You know each other?" she asked. Nathan turned to her, his expression softening slightly. "That song you were singing, where did you learn it?" "From my mother," Luna replied, clutching the wooden flute tighter. "Esperanza Hawk." Nathan went completely still. "Esperanza," he repeated softly. "She was alive, here. She died 2 winters ago," Luna said, watching his reaction carefully. "The fever took her, but before she went, she gave me this." She reached into her pocket for the photograph, only to realize it was missing. "Looking for this?" Fletcher asked, reluctantly producing the photograph from his pocket. "It fell from your shawl." Blackwood's eyes widened at the sight of the image. "Where did you get that?" he demanded, his voice sharp with panic. Before Luna could answer, Nathan had crossed the room to look at the photograph in Fletcher's hand. His sharp intake of breath was audible in the now silent saloon. "I have the same picture," he said, reaching inside his shirt to produce an identical, though more weathered, photograph. "My sister gave it to me before they took her to the reservation. She said if anything happened to her, I should find these people." Luna stared at the duplicate image, then at Nathan's face, seeing for the first time the subtle resemblance to her mother in the shape of his eyes, the high cheekbones. You're my uncle." "This is very touching," Blackwoods interrupted, his voice dripping with venom. "A family reunion of sorts. Unfortunately, Mr. Rivers here has a rather significant price on his head in 3 territories. Sheriff Dawson will be mighty interested to hear who's come calling." Fletcher, sensing the volatile situation escalating, placed the shotgun on the bar with deliberate care. "Not in my establishment, gentlemen. Stay out of this, Fletcher," Blackwoods warned. "You don't know what you're getting involved in." "What happened at Yellow Canyon?" Luna demanded suddenly, looking between Nathan and Blackwoods. "Why did my mother warn me never to speak of it?" A heavy silence fell over the room. Finally, Nathan spoke, his eyes never leaving Blackwoods. "Yellow Canyon was a mining camp. Independent prospectors mostly. Apache and Mexican workers. They found a rich silver vein, the richest in the territory. 3 days later, everyone in the camp was dead, officially blamed on an Apache raid. But it wasn't Apache." Old Man Jenkins slurred from his corner. "I was supposed to be there that day. Only reason I'm alive is my mule threw a shoe on the trail." He pointed a shaking finger at Blackwoods. "His men did the killing for the silver, for the claim." Blackwood's hand moved to his revolver. "Careful, old man. Grief over your wife has clearly affected your mind." "My wife?" Jenkins laughed bitterly. "She didn't die of natural causes either, did she? Not after she started asking questions about the deed to our mine, the mine you stole last month when you foreclosed on our loan." The tension in the room had become unbearable, like the heavy air before a thunderstorm. Luna suddenly noticed that Blackwood's men had positioned themselves near the doors, blocking the exits. "You're the man in the photograph," she said, the realization dawning. "Standing next to my mother. Were you friends once? What happened between you?" Something dangerous flashed in Blackwoods' eyes. With lightning speed, he drew his revolver and pointed it directly at Luna's heart. "Friends? Oh, we were more than friends, girl. Didn't your mother tell you anything about your father before she died?" The implication hung in the air, stunning Luna into silence. Nathan's hand moved to his own weapon, but Blackwood's guards had already drawn their guns. "You have exactly until I count to 3 to explain why I shouldn't put a bullet through both your hearts right now," Blackwood said, his voice eerily calm. Luna's mind raced, connecting fragments of stories her mother had told her, hints and warnings that suddenly made terrible sense. Her eyes fell on the photograph in Nathan's hand, the fourth person in the image, the face that had been scratched out. "Because you're in this picture too, Mr. Blackwoods," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Can't you know exactly what it means?" The color drained from Blackwood's face as he stared at the faded image. "1," he began counting, his finger tightening on the trigger. Nathan moved with the speed of a man accustomed to fighting for his life, pushing Luna behind him and drawing his weapon in one fluid motion. "Your quarrel is with me, Blackwoods. Always has been." 2. Blackwoods continued, his eyes cold as winter. Fletcher raised the shotgun. "This ends now. Everyone put your weapons down before—" The sound of shattering glass cut him off as the saloon window exploded inward. A figure crashed through in a shower of glass and wood splinters, a young man in mining clothes, his face bloodied but determined. "Miguel!" Luna cried, recognizing her brother. "They're coming!" Miguel gasped, struggling to his feet. "Blackwood's men from the mine, at least 20 of them, armed!" "They're surrounding the saloon." As if to confirm his words, horses could be heard approaching outside, the ominous sound of multiple riders coming to a halt in front of the building. 3! Blackwoods finished with a smile of triumph, taking aim at Nathan's heart. In that frozen moment of impending violence, Luna did the only thing she could think of. She began to sing, the same song as before, but now with all the power and desperation in her soul poured into every note. The sound filled the saloon, momentarily stunning everyone present. As the last note hung in the air, silence fell over the Silver Crown saloon, a silence pregnant with destiny, with choices that would determine who lived and who died in the next few moments. A silence that seemed to stretch into eternity. And then the front door burst open. The door of the Silver Crown saloon burst open to reveal Sheriff Dawson, his revolver already drawn. "Nobody move," he ordered, taking in the tense standoff. Blackwoods immediately transformed, lowering his weapon and turning to the sheriff with a politician's smile. "Perfect timing. May I present Nathan Rivers, the Apache Outlaw himself, wanted in 3 territories." "Rivers," the sheriff acknowledged coldly. "Been hearing stories about you for years." "Sheriff," Nathan replied without lowering his gun. "Don't suppose you're interested in hearing about what really happened at Yellow Canyon?" "Can't say that I am. What I am interested in is that $500 bounty on your head." Outside, a voice called, "Sheriff, we got the place surrounded, just like Mr. Blackwoods ordered before he went in." Annoyance flashed across Blackwood's face at this revelation. Sheriff Dawson raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "This man is a murderer," Luna declared, stepping forward. "Not my uncle. Blackwoods orchestrated the massacre at Yellow Canyon to steal the silver claim. My mother knew the truth. Quite an imagination." Blackwoods replied smoothly. Perhaps she inherited her mother's tendency toward hysteria. My mother was many things, but never hysterical. She was terrified of you. Enough, Dawson interrupted. Rivers, drop your weapon. You're coming with me. Nathan remained motionless. And if I refuse? Then my deputies and Mr. Blackwood's men ensure none of you leave alive, the sheriff replied matter-of-factly. Your choice. After a tense moment, Nathan slowly lowered his weapon. Smart decision, Dawson said, producing handcuffs. Now, hands behind. The deafening roar of a shotgun blast cut him off. Old Man Jenkins had fired into the ceiling, creating chaos. Nathan seized the opportunity, grabbing Luna's arm. Back door, he shouted. Now! Fletcher swung his shotgun toward Blackwoods as Nathan, Luna, and Miguel bolted for the kitchen. Sheriff Dawson recovered quickly, firing a shot that splintered the doorframe inches from Nathan's head. After them! Blackwoods roared. They escaped into the alley behind the saloon, Miguel leading despite his injuries. This way, he gasped. I know a place. He guided them through a maze of narrow passages to an abandoned shed. Once inside, Nathan barricaded the door while Luna examined the cut on Miguel's forehead. What were you thinking, crashing through that window? Wasn't exactly planning it, Miguel grimaced. One of Blackwood's men spotted me listening. Window seemed like the best option. They'll find us soon enough, Nathan warned. This place won't hold them long. Then we need answers now, Luna demanded. You called my mother by name. You said you're my uncle. Explain. Nathan's eyes, so similar to her own, met hers steadily. Esperanza was my half-sister. Same father, different mothers. My mother was Apache, hers Mexican. Our father was a trader named John Rivers, who respected both peoples. His expression darkened. Until Yellow Canyon. What really happened there? Luna asked softly. Yellow Canyon wasn't just a mining camp. It was an experiment. Apache, Mexican, and white miners working as equals, sharing profits. My father and your mother were part of it. So was Blackwoods back then. Blackwoods? Miguel asked incredulously. The same man who forces Indians and Mexicans into the most dangerous parts of his mines? Nathan nodded grimly. People change when silver and power are involved. He produced his photograph. 4 partners founded Yellow Canyon. My father, your mother, Blackwoods, and a geologist named William Hart. Luna studied the image, noting the scratched-out face. Hart? He discovered the main silver vein, richest in the territory. The camp was celebrating that night when everything changed. Nathan's voice hardened. I was visiting my sister. I'd just returned from the war. That night, masked men attacked, shot everyone. Men, women, children. I was checking the perimeter. By the time I returned, almost everyone was dead. Luna's hand covered her mouth. But my mother survived. I found her barely alive, hidden beneath bodies. She told me Blackwoods had arranged everything, that he wanted the claim for himself after arguing with our father and Hart. She begged me to run, to survive, to find the truth someday. And Hart, Miguel asked. Missing, presumed dead. His body was never found. Nathan's expression darkened. I buried my father, then took your mother to an Apache healer. When she recovered, she disappeared. Said it was safer if we separated. Luna nodded slowly, pieces of her childhood suddenly making sense. She never stayed in one place too long, always looking over her shoulder. She only settled here 5 years ago when we needed schooling. Her eyes widened. That was when Blackwoods arrived too. He must have recognized her, but he didn't expose or harm her, Miguel pointed out. Why wait all these years? My guess? He needed something from her, something valuable enough to keep her alive despite the risk. A heavy pounding at the door interrupted them. The barricade shuddered but held. We know you're in there, Rivers, Sheriff Dawson called. Come out now and maybe the others walk away from this. Nathan pushed aside old barrels, revealing a trap door. Cellar, he explained. Question is whether it connects to anything useful. The tunnels, Miguel exclaimed. The first miners dug passages beneath the town. Some connect to the mines themselves. They descended quickly, Nathan pulling the trapdoor closed as the shed door finally gave way. Darkness enveloped them. Miguel lit a match, revealing a narrow tunnel. This way leads toward the center of town. They moved through the claustrophobic passage, pausing at a junction. We need to get you two out of town, Nathan said, before Blackwoods realizes what the photograph really shows. And what does it show? Luna pressed. Look closer at the background, Nathan instructed. Luna studied her copy in the flickering light. Behind the 4 figures was a surveyor's map pinned to a wooden board. Not just any map, Nathan explained. The original survey of the Yellow Canyon silver vein. Blackwoods only found the main vein after the massacre. The richest branches remain undiscovered. Miguel's eyes widened. A lost silver lode? Worth millions. Nathan confirmed. Your mother must have had a copy. Blackwoods would have been desperate to find it. She never mentioned any map, Luna frowned. But the night she died, delirious with fever, she kept talking about the heart of the mountain and how it sings in the moonlight. I thought it was just the fever. A riddle, Nathan mused. Esperanza always did love puzzles. Their match sputtered out as voices echoed through the tunnel behind them. They've found the trapdoor, Nathan whispered. They hurried forward until they reached a wooden hatch in the ceiling. Nathan pushed against it cautiously. It didn't budge. Listen, Luna whispered. Above them they could hear Blackwoods speaking. Don't care what it takes, find them, the girl especially. If she's figured out what her mother knew about the Veneno branch of the vein. What about Rivers? Another voice asked. He's worth 500 to us alive. Fool, Blackwoods snapped. The Veneno silver deposit is worth 50,000 times that. Rivers knows too much. He doesn't leave this town breathing, nor does the girl or her brother. Luna and Nathan exchanged glances. The Veneno branch, Spanish for poison, must be the rich deposit Blackwoods had never found. Miguel pointed to a narrow side passage they had missed. Might lead to the church basement. Their final match flickered out as they squeezed into the tight passage, feeling their way forward in darkness. The voices behind them grew louder, accompanied by lantern light. The passage ended at a vertical shaft with metal rungs. Nathan felt upward, encountering another hatch. He pushed it open, then helped Luna and Miguel up. They emerged into an abandoned confessional booth in the old church. Through the screen, Luna could see the main church was empty, dust motes dancing in colored light from stained glass windows. We need weapons and horses, Nathan said, and to figure out what your mother's riddle means before Blackwoods does. The deed, Miguel said suddenly. Mother kept a tin box buried beneath her bed. Said never to open it unless something happened to her. We never did, even after she died. Luna stared at her brother. You think the map might be there? Nathan peered through the church window toward the main street, where Blackwood's men were still searching. The Silver King mine, he said thoughtfully. Blackwood's pride and joy. How well do you know it, Miguel? Well enough, Miguel replied. Worked the lower levels for the past year. A slow smile spread across Nathan's face. The miners, how do they feel about Blackwoods? Miguel's expression hardened. They hate him. The wage cuts, the dangerous conditions. 3 men died last month when a shaft collapsed. Blackwoods called them replaceable. Here's what we're going to do, Nathan began, outlining a daring plan that would either save them or seal their fate. As he spoke, Luna touched the small wooden flute hidden in her pocket, her mother's final gift. Only now did she notice the strange markings carved along its length, markings that looked suspiciously like a map. When the time comes, trust your blood, her mother had whispered before dying. The time had come, at last. It's too dangerous, Luna protested, gripping Nathan's arm as they crouched behind the livery stable. There must be another way. Nathan's expression remained resolute. Blackwoods controls the town, the sheriff, and every road out. We need a diversion big enough to split his forces. The afternoon sun was beginning its descent, painting Silver Creek in shades of amber and gold. From their hiding spot, they could see Blackwood's men patrolling the streets, questioning townspeople, searching buildings. Miguel, are you certain about this? Luna turned to her brother, concern etched on her face. Miguel nodded, determination in his young eyes. The miners begin shift change in 20 minutes. If I can reach Sanchez and Martinez before then, they'll spread the word. The men have been waiting for a chance like this. Nathan checked the revolver he'd taken from one of Blackwood's men during their escape. Remember, no one gets hurt. This is about creating chaos, not bloodshed. And while Miguel rallies the miners, we retrieve the box from beneath Mother's bed, Luna said, running her fingers along the strange markings on her wooden flute. Then meet at Widow Parker's farm by sunset. If anything goes wrong, Nathan began. It won't, Miguel interrupted, his voice stronger than his 16 years suggested. Not this time. The siblings embraced briefly, the ghost of their mother's presence almost tangible between them. Then Miguel slipped away, using the back alleys he knew so well to make his way toward the mine. He's brave, Nathan observed, like his mother. Luna smiled sadly. Like our family, it seems. She hesitated. There's something I didn't mention earlier. When we fled the saloon, I grabbed this. She produced a folded paper from her pocket, the deed to their small house on the edge of town. Your mother's property deed? Nathan asked, confused. Look at the signature of the witness, Luna instructed, pointing to the bottom of the document. Nathan's eyes widened. William Hart, the missing partner. He was alive after Yellow Canyon. And helping my mother, Luna added. She never mentioned him, but this deed is dated 3 years after the massacre. Nathan studied the signature, his mind racing. If Hart survived, He might have had a copy of the survey map too. Blackwoods wouldn't just be hunting your mother's copy. He'd be searching for Hart as well. A shout from down the street interrupted them. Two of Blackwood's men had spotted them. Nathan grabbed Luna's hand and they ran, ducking behind buildings, weaving through narrow passages between houses. "This way," Luna urged, leading them toward the poorer section of town where her family's modest home stood. Unlike the prosperous businesses near the center, these simple dwellings housed the miners, laundresses, and laborers who served Silver Creek's growing prosperity without sharing in it. They reached the small weathered house just as a church bell began tolling frantically in the distance, the signal that Miguel had succeeded in reaching the miners. The distinctive sound of men shouting and tools clanging carried across town from the direction of the mine. "Hurry," Nathan urged, keeping watch as Luna unlocked the door. Inside, the humble home bore touches of Esperanza's heritage: woven blankets with Apache patterns, small carved wooden figures, dried herbs hanging from the ceiling. Luna moved quickly to her mother's room, dropping to her knees beside the narrow bed. "Help me move this," she grunted, pushing at the heavy frame. Together, they shifted the bed to reveal a section of floorboard that looked no different from the others. Luna pressed on one end, causing the opposite end to lift slightly. She pulled up the board, revealing a small cavity containing a tin box, tarnished with age. "This is it," she whispered, lifting it reverently. The box was locked, but the key hung on a leather cord around Luna's neck, a gift from her mother that she had never understood until now. As the key turned in the lock, distant gunshots echoed from the direction of the mine. Luna and Nathan exchanged worried glances. "Miguel," she breathed. "He knows what he's doing," Nathan reassured her, though his eyes betrayed his concern. "Open it." The lid creaked open to reveal several items: a small leather pouch, a bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon, a gold wedding band, and beneath them all, a folded document sealed with wax. Luna broke the seal with trembling fingers and unfolded what appeared to be a hand-drawn map. But instead of the expected survey diagram, they found themselves looking at a strange circular design with flowing lines radiating outward like a sunburst. Around the edges were written words in a mixture of Spanish and Apache. "This doesn't look like any mine survey I've seen," Nathan frowned. "It's not," Luna realized, comparing the markings to those on her flute. "It's a star chart. See these constellations? And here," she pointed to writing along the edge, "when the moon touches the heart of the mountain, the earth sings with silver." Nathan's expression cleared. "A celestial map. Clever. Your mother was hiding the location using the stars. And time," Luna added. "This marking here shows a specific moon phase. If I'm reading this correctly, it's..." She calculated quickly. "Tonight. The alignment happens tonight." A pounding at the door startled them both. "Open up in the name of the law," Sheriff Dawson's voice called. Nathan gestured toward the back window. "Go. I'll hold them off." "No," Luna said firmly, stuffing the map and letters into her pocket. "We go together, or not at all." The door splintered inward as they climbed out the back window. Sheriff Dawson and two deputies burst into the house just as Nathan and Luna disappeared into the gathering dusk. They ran toward the edge of town, the sounds of chaos growing behind them. Black smoke now rose from the direction of the mine. The workers had set fire to the equipment shed as part of Miguel's diversion. "There!" Luna pointed to a figure on horseback waiting behind the last row of houses. Miguel, with 3 horses saddled and ready. "You did it!" she exclaimed as they reached him. Miguel's face was streaked with soot, a fierce grin splitting his features. "The miners have seized the main shaft. Blackwood's men didn't know what hit them." "Anyone hurt?" Nathan asked as he mounted one of the horses. "A few bruises, nothing serious," Miguel assured them, "but it won't take long for Blackwoods to send reinforcements." "Did you find it?" Luna patted her pocket. "And more. We need to reach Yellow Canyon by midnight." They rode hard, leaving Silver Creek behind, the glow of fires illuminating the sky above the town. Luna led them east, toward the mountains that loomed like sentinels against the darkening sky. "Your mother never took you to Yellow Canyon?" Nathan asked as they rode. Luna shook her head. "She refused to speak of it, said it was a place of ghosts." "She wasn't wrong," Nathan replied grimly. "After the massacre, the Apache declared it cursed ground. No one goes there anymore." The terrain grew increasingly rugged as they climbed into the foothills. Luna consulted the star chart by moonlight, comparing celestial positions with landmarks on the horizon. "There," she finally said, pointing to a distinctive peak shaped like a spearhead, "the mountain that touches the stars. That's our reference point." They rode for another hour, following a dried creek bed that wound through increasingly narrow ravines. Finally, They reached a place where the canyon walls rose sharply on either side, creating a natural amphitheater open to the sky above. "Yellow Canyon," Nathan announced softly, dismounting, "or what's left of it." In the moonlight, they could make out the ruins of what had once been a thriving mining camp. Collapsed wooden structures, the skeletal remains of equipment, the dark mouth of the mine itself carved into the canyon wall. Nature had begun to reclaim the site, desert plants growing through floorboards, wind and sand eroding what man had built. "Listen," Miguel said suddenly, his head tilted. "Water?" A faint sound of trickling water could be heard, incongruous in the dry canyon. They followed it to a small spring emerging from the rock face, a spring that hadn't been there when Nathan last visited the canyon. "The earthquake last year must have shifted the underground water sources," Miguel reasoned, examining how the water flowed down the rock face before disappearing into the sandy soil. Luna consulted the star chart again, looking from the paper to the sky and back. "We need to follow where the water leads. The earth sings with silver," might refer to this spring. They traced the water's path until it vanished into a narrow fissure in the canyon wall, a crack barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The moonlight, now directly overhead, illuminated the entrance with an ethereal glow. "This wasn't here before," Nathan said with certainty. "The main mine entrance was over there." He pointed to a collapsed tunnel 50 yards away. Luna removed her wooden flute and held it up to the moonlight. The carved markings aligned perfectly with the fissure and the position of the moon above. "Mother's last riddle," she whispered. "When the moon touches the heart of the mountain, the earth sings with silver." She pressed the flute to her lips and played a simple melody, the same song she had sung in the saloon. The notes echoed strangely in the canyon, seeming to resonate with the very rocks around them. As the final note faded, the sound of water grew louder. The spring's flow increased, widening the fissure ever so slightly. "It's responding to the vibrations," Miguel realized. "The water is loosening the soil around the opening." "Help me," Nathan said, already pulling at the edges of the fissure. Together they managed to widen it enough for a person to enter comfortably. "I'll go first," Nathan insisted, lighting a small lantern they had brought. He squeezed through the opening and disappeared from view. After a moment, his voice echoed back, filled with wonder. "Luna, Miguel, you need to see this." One by one, they entered the narrow passage, which quickly opened into a larger tunnel that sloped gently downward. Unlike the rough-hewn main mine shaft, this tunnel had smooth walls that glittered in the lantern light. "It's a natural cavern," Miguel whispered in awe. "The silver vein must have followed this underground river channel." They proceeded carefully, the tunnel widening further until it opened into a vast underground chamber. Nathan raised the lantern higher, illuminating their surroundings. Luna gasped. The walls of the chamber were alive with silver, not just ordinary veins of ore, but massive, pure sheets of it that caught the light and reflected it 1,000-fold, creating an otherworldly glow. At the center of the chamber, a small pool of water collected, fed by droplets from stalactites above. Each drop created ripples that sent light dancing across the silvered walls, creating an effect like music made visible. "The heart of the mountain," Luna breathed. "It literally sings." "I've never seen anything like it," Nathan said, his voice hushed with reverence. "This must be the veneno branch Blackwoods mentioned, though there's nothing poisonous about it." Miguel examined the nearest wall. "This is the richest silver deposit I've ever seen, purer than anything in Blackwood's mine, worth millions." As they moved deeper into the chamber, Luna's foot struck something half buried in the sandy floor. She knelt and brushed away the soil to reveal a leather satchel, preserved by the dry, stable conditions of the cave. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was a journal, its pages yellowed but intact, and a smaller, more detailed map of the chamber they now stood in. On the journal's cover was a name inscribed in fading ink, William Hart. "He was here," Luna whispered, opening the journal to its final entry. She read aloud, "May 12th, 1869. I have found it at last, the true heart of the silver lode. Blackwoods believes he has won with his massacre, but he has only claimed the smallest finger of the hand. The true treasure remains hidden as it should. I leave this record for those who may follow, those who remember the dream of Yellow Canyon. May they use this wealth more wisely than we did. I go now to find Esperanza and her children, to ensure they remain safe from Emmett's greed." Nathan took the journal gently. "Hart survived. He found this place and kept it secret, even from your mother. To protect her," Luna realized. If she didn't know exactly where it was, Blackwoods couldn't force it from her. Miguel had moved to examine the far side of the chamber. "There's another tunnel here," he called. "Looks like it might lead back to the surface through a different route." As if in response to his words, a distant voice echoed through the chamber, a voice they all recognized with dread. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Emmett Blackwoods emerged from the tunnel Miguel had discovered, a revolver in one hand, a lantern in the other. Behind him stood Sheriff Dawson and 3 armed men. "I've been searching for this place for 8 years. Nathan stepped protectively in front of Luna and Miguel. "How did you find us?" Blackwood smiled coldly. "Did you really think you were the only ones who could read Esperanza's riddles? I lived with her for months before Yellow Canyon. I knew how her mind worked." He gestured around the chamber. "And now, at last, the Veneno silver is mine." "This doesn't belong to you," Luna said defiantly. "It belongs to the people who died for your greed." "Poetic, but irrelevant," Blackwoods replied. "Possession, my dear, is what matters in this world." His eyes narrowed as he looked at Nathan. "Though I must thank you for leading me here and saving me years of further searching." "You won't get away with this," Nathan growled. "The miners in Silver Creek are already rising against you. Word will spread." "Miners can be replaced," Blackwood shrugged dismissively. "Silver Creek is just the beginning. With this wealth, I'll build an empire." He aimed his revolver at Nathan. "Now, I believe we have unfinished business from Yellow Canyon." "Wait!" Luna stepped forward, Hart's journal clutched to her chest. "Before you kill us, don't you want to know what else Hart discovered? What's hidden deeper in the mountain?" A flicker of doubt crossed Blackwood's face. "What are you talking about?" Luna opened the journal to a page near the end. "Hart's final entry speaks of a second chamber, with deposits that dwarf even this one. He mapped it, but—" She trailed off suggestively. "Give me that journal," Blackwoods demanded, his greed overcoming his caution. As he stepped forward, Miguel whispered urgently to Nathan, "The support beams in this section are old and weak. One good shot could bring down the whole entrance." Nathan's eyes darted to the wooden beams near where Blackwoods and his men stood. Years of moisture from the spring had rotted the wood, leaving it barely holding the weight of the rock above. With lightning speed, Nathan drew his revolver and fired, not at Blackwoods but at the nearest support beam. The wood splintered as the bullet struck. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a terrifying groan, the ceiling began to shift. "Run!" Nathan shouted, grabbing Luna's arm as small rocks began to rain down from above. Blackwoods and his men scrambled backward as larger chunks of rock fell, cutting off their escape through the tunnel they had entered by. Nathan, Luna, and Miguel raced toward the fissure they had come through, the sound of falling rock growing to a thunderous roar behind them. They burst into the open air of the canyon, just as a cloud of dust billowed from the fissure. The ground beneath their feet trembled with the force of the cave-in. "Is he—" Luna began, staring at the sealed entrance. "There was another exit," Nathan reminded her. "If they reached it in time—" A gunshot rang out, the bullet striking the rock near Luna's head. They turned to see Blackwoods emerging from behind a boulder 30 yards away, his face streaked with dust and blood, his eyes wild with rage. "You've ruined everything!" he screamed, firing again. Nathan pushed Luna and Miguel toward the horses. "Go, I'll hold him off." "No," Luna refused, pulling her brother behind an outcropping of rock. "We stay together." Blackwoods advanced, firing methodically, each shot coming closer. "You're just like your mother, Luna," he called. "Too stubborn to know when you're beaten." Nathan returned fire, forcing Blackwoods to take cover. "We're outnumbered 3-1, he told Luna, "and nearly out of ammunition." Luna's fingers closed around her wooden flute. A desperate idea formed in her mind. "The acoustics of the canyon," she whispered. "Miguel, remember how Mother could call the wild horses?" Miguel's eyes widened with understanding. "The resonance pattern. You think it would work on—" "Worth trying," Luna said, positioning herself behind a large boulder. Taking a deep breath, she began to play, not the gentle melody from before, but a high, piercing sequence of notes that echoed sharply off the canyon walls. The strange music reverberated through Yellow Canyon, growing rather than diminishing with distance. Blackwoods paused in his advance, momentarily confused by the sound. "What game are you playing now?" he shouted, but his voice was nearly drowned out by a new sound, the drumming of hooves. From the canyon entrance came a sight none of them had expected, a herd of wild horses, perhaps 20 strong, galloping directly toward them, driven by the sound that mimicked their distress call. Blackwoods turned in horror as the herd bore down on his position. He fired his remaining bullets in panic, but couldn't stop the wall of charging animals. His scream was cut short as the herd engulfed him. When the dust settled, and the thunder of hooves had faded into the distance, Blackwoods lay motionless on the canyon floor. Luna, Nathan, and Miguel approached cautiously. The mining tycoon was still breathing, but badly injured, his legs crushed by the stampede. "Poetic justice," Nathan observed grimly, "trampled by the wild things he could never control." "What do we do with him now?" Miguel asked. Luna knelt beside their fallen enemy, her expression a complex mixture of hatred and pity. "We take him back to face the people of Silver Creek. Let them decide his fate." As they bound Blackwood's wounds and secured him to his own horse, the first light of dawn touched the rim of Yellow Canyon, illuminating the place where so many had died and where, perhaps now, justice might finally begin. Luna carefully wrapped Hart's journal and the star chart in oilcloth, tucking them safely away. "Mother always said the truth would come out eventually. And what happens to the silver?" Miguel asked, gesturing toward the sealed cave. Nathan looked thoughtfully at the ruined entrance. "It stays hidden for now. Yellow Canyon has seen enough bloodshed over silver. When the time is right, when people can use it without killing each other for it, then we'll return." As they rode away, Luna placed the wooden flute to her lips once more and played a gentle melody, not a call or a signal this time, but a song of remembrance for those who had died here and of hope for what might yet be built from their sacrifice. Behind them, as if in answer, the wind whispered through the canyon, carrying the echo of her song toward the rising sun. The return to Silver Creek unfolded like a scene from a fever dream. Luna rode at the front, her head held high despite the exhaustion etched on her face. Nathan followed, leading the horse that carried a semi-conscious Blackwoods, his once immaculate suit now torn and bloodied. Miguel brought up the rear, keeping watch for any remaining loyal to the fallen tycoon. As they crested the final hill overlooking the town, they paused in collective shock. Silver Creek was transformed. Black smoke rose from several buildings. Groups of miners stood guard at street corners, armed with picks and shovels. The sheriff's office door hung from broken hinges. "The miners' revolt spread," Miguel whispered, awe in his voice. "Revolution," Nathan corrected grimly. "This is what happens when men are pushed too far." They rode slowly down the main street, drawing stares and whispers from townspeople who emerged from doorways and alleys to witness Blackwood's downfall. By the time they reached the town square, a crowd had gathered. Fletcher pushed through the throng, his weathered face breaking into a relieved smile at the sight of Luna and Miguel. "Thank God you're alive," he said, embracing them briefly before turning his attention to Blackwoods. "I see you brought back a souvenir. He needs a doctor," Luna said, her voice firm despite the murmurs of disagreement from the crowd. "Then he faces justice for Yellow Canyon and everything since." "Justice looks different today than it did yesterday," Fletcher warned, gesturing around. "Sheriff Dawson and his deputies fled town after the miners took control. There's no law here now except what these people decide." Nathan dismounted, facing the gathering crowd. "My name is Nathan Rivers," he announced, his voice carrying across the square. "Some of you know me as the Apache Outlaw. Others have only heard stories. Today I bring you Emmett Blackwoods, the man who built his fortune on a massacre at Yellow Canyon 8 years ago." A rumble passed through the crowd. Many had heard whispers of Yellow Canyon, but few knew the full story. "What should we do with him?" someone called out. "Hang him!" shouted another. "No," Luna stepped forward, her clear voice cutting through the angry murmurs. "That would make us no better than him." She stood beside Nathan, suddenly seeming taller than her years warranted. "My mother was Esperanza Hawk, one of the founders of Yellow Canyon. She survived the massacre Blackwoods ordered and spent the rest of her life hiding from him, protecting a secret." Luna produced Hart's journal, holding it up for all to see. "This is the truth of Yellow Canyon, written by William Hart, another survivor. It details Blackwood's crimes and the fortune in silver he killed for but never found." The crowd fell silent, hanging on her every word. "Silver corrupts," she continued. "It turned Blackwoods from a partner to a murderer. It built this town on the backs of miners who barely earned enough to feed their families while he lived like a king." She looked around at the faces watching her. "What happens next defines who we are." An older miner pushed forward, Martinez, one of the leaders of the revolt. "What do you propose, girl?" Luna took a deep breath. "Yellow Canyon silver belongs to no one person. It should benefit everyone. The miners who risk their lives, the Apache whose land this really is, the people of Silver Creek who deserve better than tyranny." "You found the lost silver lode?" Fletcher asked, eyes wide. Nathan nodded and sealed it away again. "Some treasures are too dangerous to be claimed before their time." "Blackwood's faces trial," Luna continued. "A real trial, with witnesses and evidence. His mines and businesses become the property of those who truly built them, the workers." A murmur of approval ran through the crowd, growing into cheers from the miners. "And what about you?" Fletcher asked. "After all this, what do you want?" Luna glanced at Nathan and Miguel before answering. "The truth, recognition of what happened at Yellow Canyon, a marker for those who died there." She touched the wooden flute at her belt. "And music. My mother's songs won't be silenced anymore. As the crowd dispersed, taking Blackwoods to the doctor under heavy guard, Luna, Nathan, and Miguel retreated to Fletcher's saloon. The Silver Crown had survived the uprising relatively unscathed, though the mirror behind the bar now sported a spiderweb of cracks from a stray bullet. "To Esperanza," Fletcher said, raising a glass of his finest whiskey. "She'd be proud of you both." They drank the toast in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. "What happens now?" Miguel asked finally, looking to Nathan. The older man considered the question carefully. "I've spent 8 years as an outlaw, hunting for the truth about Yellow Canyon. Now that it's found," he shrugged, "perhaps it's time to stop running." "Stay," Luna said simply. "Help us rebuild Silver Creek into something better than Blackwood's vision." A ghost of a smile touched Nathan's lips. The Apache Outlaw settling down to become a respectable citizen? The newspapers would never believe it. "The newspapers rarely print the truth anyway," Fletcher observed dryly. 3 weeks later, the transformation of Silver Creek was well underway. Blackwoods, his injuries treated, had been transported to the territorial capital for trial. Stories of Yellow Canyon spread throughout the territory, drawing reporters and curiosity seekers. The miners had formed a cooperative to run the Silver King mine, sharing profits equally among workers. A delegation of Apache from the reservation had been invited to participate in discussions about the future of the land around Yellow Canyon. Luna stood on the porch of her small house, watching the sunset paint the distant mountains gold. The wooden flute in her hands gleamed with fresh oil, the carved symbols now clear and meaningful. Nathan approached, leading 2 saddled horses. "Ready for a ride? There's something I want to show you." They rode in companionable silence into the hills north of town, following a trail that wound through juniper and scrub oak until they reached a promontory overlooking a vast expanse of desert and mountains. "Your mother and I came here as children," Nathan said as they dismounted, "before the war, before Yellow Canyon. When our father would bring us trading, we'd sneak away to this spot." Luna stood beside him, taking in the breathtaking vista. "It's beautiful. I brought you here because I wanted you to see Silver Creek the way it could be," Nathan said, pointing to where the town's lights were beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. "From up here you can imagine it as something more than Blackwood's creation." Luna nodded thoughtfully. "A place where Apache, Mexican, and white settlers worked together, like Yellow Canyon was meant to be." "Your mother never gave up on that dream," Nathan said softly. "Even in hiding, even in fear, she raised you and Miguel to see beyond divisions." Luna removed the flute from her belt, turning it thoughtfully in her hands. "I've been studying the markings. They're not just a map to the silver, they're a story, our family's story, carved into something that would survive." "Some legacies are more valuable than silver," Nathan agreed. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Luna raised the flute to her lips and began to play. The melody, part Apache prayer, part Spanish lullaby, drifted across the landscape, a bridge between worlds, between past and future. In town, Miguel paused in his work at the newly renamed Esperanza Saloon, formerly the Silver Crown, hearing the distant notes carried on the evening breeze. Fletcher, polishing glasses behind the bar, smiled at the sound. "That girl's voice will be heard far beyond Silver Creek someday," he predicted. Miguel nodded, pride evident in his expression. "My sister was born to sing. Mother always said music travels further than bullets and lasts longer than silver." Outside the saloon, the people of Silver Creek went about their evening activities in a town slowly being reborn. Former enemies worked side by side, united by a common vision and the shared experience of throwing off Blackwood's yoke. On the promontory, Luna lowered the flute as the final notes faded into the desert night. "What will you do now?" she asked Nathan. "Your name has been cleared, but 8 years as an outlaw isn't easily forgotten." Nathan gazed thoughtfully at the stars emerging above them. "There are other Yellow Canyons out there, other Blackwoods, other people who need someone to stand between them and power." "You're leaving," Luna realized, a hint of sadness in her voice. "For a time," he acknowledged. "There are Apache families still searching for children taken during the relocations, parents looking for sons and daughters, children who, like you, might not even know their true heritage." Luna nodded in understanding. "But you'll come back?" "Silver Creek is family now," Nathan said simply, "and I've spent too many years without family." They rode back to town in the deepening darkness, 2 figures silhouetted against the star-filled sky, the singer and the outlaw, carrying forward a legacy born in blood, but transformed through courage and compassion into something that might, in time, heal the divisions of a fractured land. As they reached the edge of town, Luna began to sing softly, her voice joining with the night sounds of the desert. This time, when she sang of mountains and valleys, of struggles and perseverance, Her words carried not just memory, but promise. The promise of a Silver Creek reborn from the ashes of greed and of a people who refused to let the past define their future. The mining tycoon had once laughed at a poor girl's song, but now that song echoed through a town transformed, carried on the wind to places far beyond Silver Creek, to ears and hearts ready to hear its message of resilience, justice, and hope. And in that song was the true silver lode, more precious and enduring than any metal torn from the reluctant earth, the legacy of Esperanza, of Yellow Canyon, and of all those who dared to dream of a world where the value of a person wasn't measured in silver or gold, but in the courage to stand for what was right, even against impossible odds. That legacy, unlike Blackwood's empire, would never crumble to dust.